eternal repetition. What else is there to tell you than that I love you? Let me repeat this phrase like any nutty doting idiot, this like mantras rambling nonsense, but to me, like unto him, it is dead serious, and therefore the more important to just have it constantly, incessantly repeated, with the same insistence as the rolling waves keep going on and on and on forever, for just the glory of it, ever growing in more furious energy, to sometimes make the ocean power greater in tremendousness than any other, if we only have our love for an exception.
Spiritual symbiosis. We both suffer from a physical infirmity in different ways, but being invalids, our different handicaps will compensate us, making us in one way to each other complementary, which the more releases our spirituality and makes it dominant in our relationship. Thus physical shortcomings and this limiting annoyance favors the unification of our souls and makes it independent of our whereabouts. Thus can I carry you around wherever you may be, and you will have me still no matter where I be. And the result is this, that we will only get the nearer to each other the more we depart and try to separate. When in the tenderness of our togetherness, when in the tenderness of our togetherness I dream of you remembering our trials, I can but sustain the fact that we remain inseparable, even separated by mundane dimensions such as space and time, which simply are beneath us and can't bother us, since we remain together beyond every reason, independent of the universe and physics, the shallowness of all illusions of reality. Thus do I love you infinitely still with constantly increasing faithfulness, that has gone much too far in carrying us away, to ever set us down on earth again, since even the severest efforts of the basest vanity can never pin us or our love down to mortality. Friendship and love continued. Friendship is a universal thing, but love is personal and private, and the holiest of all religions, since it is a matter of the soul alone. Your friends may love you, and your contacts may expand forever. That's what friendship is for, to connect, maintain, enjoy, and broaden company for the constructive end of everyone you know. But your love can only be one person. It demands, necessitates, and needs some reservation, just to keep it holy and maintain its holiness, the apex of which is the union of two souls, with a desire for them to remain united in their spiritual communion forever. Athenian graffiti. Inscription on a hostel bed signed Big Mouth Strikes Again. Living in Athens is all good and fine, till you've been drinking that old Greek wine, climbing the stairs completely rat-assed, falling back down pretty damn fast. Ouzo for breakfast, metaxa for tea. Oh no, my liver is disowning me. Yet another delirium. Being drunk with you is worse than being drunk with wine, or better, being more profound and lasting an intoxication, for which no cure is in sight, no rehabilitation, no relief, no solace, and no peace. The wonderful delirium going on incessantly, like on some ride on ever higher mountains, so that nothing will appear more fearful than one morning wake up sober to reality, and find the ecstasy reduced to nothing, replaced with boring humdrum nothingness. This must lead to the undeniable conclusion that there is no drunkenness, delirium, or intoxication that is not appropriate and totally excused, if only it adds wings and force to your eternal flight of love. An old theme. If my thoughts could reach you with their tenderness and kisses, spiting distances and obstacles and vain reality, embracing you in never-ending warmth of heart, and overcoming all the limiting dimensions, then also the suborned informers would be of no consequence. No slander would come near us or concern us. Mortal thoughts would fall apart and vanish, thoroughly reduced to nothing by our love, and quarrels would be empty words of nonsense, signifying nothing, going down the bog of emptiness. For that is the magic force of love, that everything disintegrates, that is not structured and endorsed by that sole element, upholding all the universe and being only love. The future. The past is gone, and although living still, you must not look behind you, turning back to what must stay behind and left behind forever. For your daily duty as a man to life is to create the living coming time, the unavoidable tomorrow that must always come, depending on what you make out of it at present. Thus, to live is just a duty of creation, and the best that you can do in this predicament is just to simply make the best of it, as you are stuck in this dilemma of mortality and can't do much else than to use it for the best, that is, creation of the future, which just can't go wrong if only you just use your love to make it. Bacchanalia. Let them sing and dance and vomit, to their heart's content. It will just do them good, and join their party, sing and dance and vomit. It will only do you lots of good. As long as you express yourself and make an outlet of your life as much as possible, it will just do you lots of good. The more the better, and you can be certain no one will object as long as you keep carrying on, organically, sticking to what's natural, and it will all be just an orgy of consummate innocence, and nothing is more natural and free. Keep parting on, and no one will object, as long as you just keep on parting on. Voices of silence. There is no more expressive sound than silence, in which actually all sounds and music is contained, all voices that are never heard, but all the more outspoken, of all things and secrets, mysteries and truths unheard of. Love and friendship needs no more advanced expression. The supreme intimacy is without words, which only our souls resound the more with music, booming in its silent harmony to outshine noise irrelevant, to just stick to the basics of our love, which only needs the perfect silence to communicate and have all things said perfectly. Vad döden mot kärleken? Tro aldrig att din bortgång kunde ändra något av min kärlek, att din död var något hinder för att jag till tidens ände ändå skulle dyrka dig. Allt är omöjligt och allt kan omöjliggöras utom kärleken som inte ens kan tystas genom döden. Får ej sommarsolen även glaciärerna att smälta, kysses inte åter liv i all naturen av den ljuva våren, efter midnattstidens onda frysta mörkers evighet. Är döden ej en skälm om den kan tro att den alls existerar? Du var allt för mig och är det alltjämt, fastän säkerheten är total i att jag aldrig mer kan nå dig, röra dig, få se dig eller höra dig. Men ändå kan jag känna dig och att du lever. Endast sinnligheten mellan oss har dött, men ersatts av en djupare samhörighet som inga världsliga förgängligheter någonsin kan röra, påverka, besudla eller hindra. Förskönande ögon, det skapar din värld och förbättrar den med dina ögons förtrollande strålglans av godhet allenast och idealism som just sprider sitt ljus ner i samtligas själar och gör dem till godare människor blott genom din existens. Det är själens livgivande skapande kraft som sålunda likt gröna fingrar får livet att blomstra och bara bli bättre omkring dig. Vad ger dig då denna otroliga lyskraft av skönhet? Det vet jag som musiker, att det är din hemlighet, varför den skall förbli hemlighållen emellan oss. Beautifying eyes, they create your world, improving it, with the enchanting luster of your eyes, of only goodness and idealism. With softness generously spreading out your light into the souls of everyone you meet, thus turning them to better human beings only by your mere existence. It's the life-inspiring and creative power of the soul which thus miraculously, like green fingers, makes life bloom and flourish and improve around you. What is then your gift of this incredible, expansive beauty? Yes, I know as a musician what your secret is, and therefore will preserve it secretly between us. Basics. Leave me out of all the brainwash noise of vanity, of this mass culture of superficiality and nonsense, controlled by media vomiting dispersing stuff all over this polluted planet of denaturalization just to make the brainwash world pandemic worse for the short-sighted benefit of poison chaos merchants. Let me hide behind the trees of some forgotten virgin forest and remain there in humility, timidity, and peace, to only concentrate on vital things that make life worthwhile after all, the beauty that remains forever, the experience that is forever beneficial, music that will never die, and ancient sacred writings going on inspiring forever. Nothing else is really of some consequence. This brainwash age of stress and mental aberration is just like any war in history, a vanity to outlive, although hibernation under duress always is an unfair trial of constructiveness and love, as if they ever could be doubted, questioned, harassed tragically by the foolishness of vanity. The 10 Commandments of Pantheism found this by chance and thought it worthwhile noting down. There's only one God, and he is every God. All life is sacred, and thou shalt not abuse it. Rest from stress whenever you can. Thou shalt respect and tolerate the faiths, beliefs, and religions of others. Killing any living being is always murder. Love is all, but don't abuse it. The only thing that really can be stolen from you is your life, which is just a loan anyway. Truth will always prevail, and lies will never last. Respect your neighbor and what he values in life. Life is universal and everywhere, to be respected, recreated, and maintained. Intimacy. The understatement of communion just between the two of us, in pious silence of the more inveterate vibrations that accelerate with urgent constancy to hopelessly inveigle us into an ever deeper abyss of intimacy is not between ourselves exclusively, but is a matter that concerns the universe, like all intimacy, the highest of all possible communication, since its privacy lews out the heart of power, energy, and spiritual potency, which is known as nothing less than love. Shadowing the sun, when in the night of sleepless worries I wake up at 3 with soaring mind, concerned about and haunted by adversities, oppression, persecution, cruelty, and senselessness, the war against the freedom of constructive minds, the efforts to obstruct the freedom of the internet, the civil wars of bigotry, fanaticism, and hate, I cough distraught with nervous sickness, like in some tuberculosis last stage, that will never finish me but just goes on. I think of you with my sincerest love, and know for sure that we will manage everything, and even Bush, the greatest presidential failure, and the global warming threats of dire prospects, since our love is hot enough to even outshine and cool down the sun. Limitation is no limit. How can I give you all that love I want to give, but am too mortal and too limited in my qualifications to at all be even able to express? That is the only problem of our love affair and our relationship, but that is maybe why we have instead our music, for a universe of love expressions, since, as every thoughtful artist knows, all beauty comes from love alone, and in its spiritual form love has no limits, but is able to expand forever in expression and creation of its beauteous infinity. So let me love you with my music, to inspire and increase your music with my own, thus filling up the world with music of our love, to multiply the beauty of its harmony forever. The day after tomorrow. When doors are closed and slammed into your face, when friends go mad and die with only words of bitterness, when you are ruined and betrayed by those you trusted, when your love refuses to communicate with you, when all the world is threatened by the day after tomorrow, when such a scenery for every day becomes more imminent, when those you love go disappearing into drugs, when childhood pals go off in alcoholism, suicide, and cancer, when the world just keeps on going constantly and more awry, when leading countries threaten punishment by force, of overkill with nuclear armament like North Korea and Iran, when rogue states are allowed to keep on getting worse with openly increasing tyranny, oppression, persecution, murder, genocide, and governmentally supported criminality, what can you do but cry with all their victims in despair, to share with them, at least in solidarity and empathy, a universal prayer in protest to echo through the universe for something better than the day after tomorrow? Lamenting the loss of a friend. How deep is thy fall, O most luciferous of angels? Maybe just because of that, the highest light of all, supremest beauty, closest to the highest, bravest of the brave, the grandest haughtiness and noblest hubris, fallen down to direst dirt in bottomless abysmal darkness, where you wallow now in madness and despair and hopelessness forever, all because you chose it for yourself. I dare to call you still my friend, although you are now incommunicable, locked up in a padded cell with nothing but your solitude, in splendid isolation as you wished, unheeding of all warnings that all bad things must end up in loneliness. All life-supporting constructivity can never fall into a loss of company. The lover, even if he is alone, is never quite alone, while loneliness, when really lonely, is the opposite for only those who search for the reward of death. A simple love song. You are my only love, the one for me to never leave, down in the bog of love, to just enjoy and be at ease. You are the world for me, as I am true to the word for thee. For only you is the girl for me, for I am so in love with you. Yours is my only heart, the one and true, forever blue. No one can strain my heart to leave my sole concern for you. Never the stars can fall but to adore just the shadow of yours. For you are mine, and my only heart belongs with all my soul to you. Wistfulness. I love you and I miss you, my friend in need and friend indeed, more worthy for your poverty than any stressed-out boring millionaire, for your particular creativeness, ennobling you and giving you more richness, in abundance of the spiritual kind, much more worth than the entire world. For spiritual children and the art of giving life to them is on a higher level than just common progeny. There is no higher honor than to be a mother, but to be creative spiritually is a higher art, contributing to spiritual welfare and awareness of all life, which is dependent solely on continuous creation. Transcendent transience. Just the hearing of your voice is more than just the loveliest reminder of our love and closeness, being overwhelming as a revelation of the presence of your personality, in singularity so perfect, in integrity, in loveliness insuperable, if you pardon my exaggerated praise, which though can never reach the height of your true worth and what it means to me. Just let me love you and I am content, and all we need for love and for my loving you is just the presence which surrounds us everywhere, wherever you may be at large lost in the world, since our separation is just a formality, our love transcending everything that smells of transience. Masochistic love. Is my love a sickness then, since pain is all it offers me? The hollowness of its deficient lethargy is like a creeping, wasting, weakening disease that eats you up from inside, cell by cell, and yet you can't stop loving still, as if the very pain and torture of it was the heart and meaning of the never-ending trauma that keeps growing like a cancer in your heart, an ache and ague worse than any physical defect, like that old man on Simbad's back, inflicting just excruciating pain for seemingly no other reason than to make you feel alive. And that is reason good enough to go on suffering, to go on smouldering in tortured silence for the one and only hope of some release some day, of any kind. But until then, just let me keep on loving in the endless torturesome exhaustion of myself, to keep it growing on forever in its total and unbearable consuming pain. Love presence, just another love song. You are there, my only love, the only one for me under the sun, no matter where you are. You always will be there and waiting for me, like I'll be yours, forever and a day, or two or more, whatever you choose to say. Whether far away or near me, what difference does it do to our love anyway, since we hold sway? For a love to ever stay on to us, adoring, cajoling, and worshipping everyone close to us. For my love is here to stay, to never leave me again for any day, if it's okay. The soul string touch. You touched in me a special chord that never did vibrate before, with such a special sound of tenderness, sincerity and purity, which more than struck me dumb and changed my life completely. One of those rare momentary miracles that suddenly burst forth completely out of nowhere to turn your existence upside down and change your character forever. Still, I cannot understand it, that miraculous chance meeting of two souls immediately melting into one which has remained one ever since, and that was long ago, like as if this our year together so far has been more than only one eternity. Imminent love psychosis. There is no love without psychosis of the most enjoyable and enviable kind, but to enjoy it you must keep it steady and control it, like a humanist and pilot staying clear in dire straits, to at all be able to let love go on. It is the sharpest and most difficult of balances. The line is thin and slack, and you just have to dance across it, meeting even uphills and adversities on this laborious course of high-strung sensitivity and the frailest delicacy, threatening to crash down into darkest abyss any moment. Just beware of getting too mixed up and filled up with yourself, and you'll be safe in loving anyone except yourself. Dealing with the overwhelmingness of love. The truth of our love is stranger than fiction, especially since we never can know the entire truth. The only truth we do know about it is our feelings that never can lie to us, whether aching like hell or longing like hell. They remain too overwhelming to be dealt with, which is why we are so careful with each other. But love, when it exists, is always true. It cannot be lied about or hidden. It cannot be tamed or even controlled. It must burst forth sooner or later, since like all true love it must breathe. So let us breathe the life of our love and enjoy it, since it was given us for a joy indeed, so rare that it truly deserves to be taken care of as a unique moment of priceless joy and precious beauty, to overwhelm eternity with in its moment of truth. Where's the problem when there is no problem? What's all the fuss about? Just knock it off and let's be friends, for good or for worse, but forever. Who wants or needs a marriage? Who cares about rings and riches? What's the use of formalities? Whoever needs sex or drugs or alcohol, when all we need is each other? Just to stand in touch and enjoy each other, just the feeling of the presence of each other, and everything else is superfluous. All we need is love, and we have it. So why make any fuss about it, since that's the last thing that we need? Since we already have the only thing we need, which simply is each other. Just another simple love song. My love is there for you to stay. My love is here in every way. My love looms large to heaven's day. In every way it works today. For ever more and more at large, I think of you, my only love. When shall we join our limbs and hearts to just tune in and fall apart, dissolved in souls and wondrous arts, creating miracles to start, and never cease in loving art to join our hearts to never part? Amnesia. Forget all the quarrels, the deceits and disappointments, each time you were humiliated and cheated by your lover, and every time you caused upsets that never could be cured. Forget all about your failures as a lover fool and freak and fake, and concentrate instead on that which mattered, your true love which always was there, aching, burning under cover in its constantly abused faithfulness, surviving every winter and catastrophe, in spite of all, to go on loving, which is all the memory that counts, the memory of love that never dies. Eagles and butterflies. This love is of some matter and concern, involving some responsibility that is not easily escaped from, since we can't escape from love. Its character is fleeting like a butterfly, but at the same time soaring like an eagle, and can in no way be caged and fettered, since the butterfly will always flutter out, and eagles without freedom are not eagles. Let us meet and join up there while we are soaring, and leave out the limits of the mundane imperfection, separating us and keeping us out of desirable communication, since our love is all the freedom that we have, the wings of which are for the eagle's use and butterflies to keep us sparkling, soaring, and enjoying, if not our mutual presence, then at least our mere existence. The impossible truth. You search for it but never find it, since it is unfathomable in its vastness, inescapable in cruelty and realism, unconquerable in inestimableness, and utterly horrendous, since there is no greater enemy of poetry than truth, reality, and facts. Still you can't help going for it, burning up and out yourself on it, in some strange self-destructive urge to just consume yourself, in the extremest, most impossible of quests, to learn what all this really is about. Sentimentality. Where will it lead us, this sentimentality, that drags us down into a bog of feelings without end and without bottom, where we perish drowning in our tears, while at the same time heaven lifts us up on eagle wings of golden love unto the realm of infinite felicity, on flights of starlit magic of eternity? No wonder I get so completely sentimental over you, since I find no way out of this predicament of stuck in bogs and lost in heaven, except by just giving in to you. In the still of the night. In the still of the night, my heart shines so bright, in my longing for you, just to see what you do, in your loveliest hue in the light of the night, which gives you all the right to command me and own me, since you only love me like I will love you, being ever more true to the love that we own, so sincerely once sown from the trust of our heart, grown together in smart, never ever to part, from the love of our heart, that we always shall grow to outstanding survival, for heaven to mow in eternal revival. The laziness of Aphrodite, a love lesson. The laziest of goddesses is only good for work in bed, and therefore rather would not leave it, but just stay there, going on in bed, alluring everyone to serve her, and her whims of love to stay in bed, with you just working hard for her, and she receiving only, in her laziness, the most privileged of gods and goddesses. But she's not entirely without rewards. She grows forever in her beauty, and that beauty is contagious, spilling over into all her lovers, who learn to enjoy it and adopt it, cultivating it as lessons of her love, to go on spreading it not only into other beds and other lovers, but all round and everywhere, as love should spread indeed in every bed, to make the world a better and a saner place, the hotbed being laziness. flowing as always, crying for you as always, I'm drowning in you as always, wiping my tears as always, away from my chin, but as always, they keep coming on, pouring down as always, renewing themselves more efficiently as always, than I even can cry them out, since as always you keep booming in my mind with your music as always, more devastatingly than any live music, since as always you are the sole live music in my life, which as always keeps me going on as always, at least never tiring of you, since you are there always. Inspiration. You bring out the best in me, my warmest feelings and my tenderest heart, my deepest constructivity and piety, and my sincere humility and reverence. With you I have my heart's content, and can have nothing more, can wish for nothing more, and have no further needs. I simply couldn't have it any better, and yet we continue forwards to develop and create our lives to even higher heights of happiness. That is the finest miracle of all, that we have only just begun. Meditation. I meditate on you, extolling in your harmony and lustre, never minding your new grey hairs, adding silver to your gold, that only makes it even more serene and precious, as the jewels of your soul enrich our lives, and turn them into something of a never-ending treasure, of our love to ever swim and drown and wallow in, to draw new life and breath from this unfathomable beauty that is you in your good heart and beatification of our lives. So could I go on meditating and forever, dreaming only lovely energizing dreams that turns my whole existence into one-sided creativeness, of which I never would complain, but only work the harder to maintain it. In the deep of the night, there is a fathomless silence of stars shining bright for eternity, irreducible lights that never go out, like our love, the miraculous light of which more is like some profound, uncompromising enigma that never can be either solved or divined in its incomprehensible darkness, concealing a starlight of more potent light than the brightest of all heaven outshining stars. Shall we try to approach, comprehend, and get down to it? No, for the answer to its distant irony and ambiguity is maybe as obvious as ever in all heaven's stars, that they shine best the further away we are kept from their mystery. The Queen of Night. The nightclub queen just doesn't care, since everyone loves her anyway, they being all to her just fools and slaves of love, of drugs and alcohol, of libido and sex, while she just leisurely enjoys their folly, laughing at the feebleness of man, his most ridiculous self-humiliation for the whims and beauty of just any wanton woman. But I will have none of it, and rather cue my anger at this gross unworthiness and terrible abuse of love, in bitter isolation and tempestuous fury, to rather plague myself with tortuous frustration than risk touching any one of those abusive dames who gladly sacrifice whatever chance of sincere love they had for just a moment of abusive pleasure, of the opportunity to trample down all human feelings. Marlowe and Shakespeare. I cannot help it, but in those dramatic lines, for centuries now published under Shakespeare's name, I keep on hearing Marlowe's mighty line, as if behind Macbeth and Hamlet, Julius Caesar and Othello, there was Tamburlaine behind them all at bottom, buried deep but never dead, in ever-resurrected, unsurpassed, consistent cruelty, a theme recurrent constantly in Marlowe, in The Jew, the Duke of Guise, the fate of Faustus, and poor Royal Edward, buried to the triumph of the boring Puritans, obscurely, atheistically, and anonymously whisked away, to be replaced by Shakespeare's chastised, mollified modification, without controversial stuff, but with a poetry triumphing over death and vanity, the more in booming verse, in straight continuation from the drama launched by Marlowe. Well, it has been proved that Marlowe was in difficulty, seriously accused of atheism and homosexuality, and other controversial stuff most insolently published by himself, like pamphlets against church and order and an atheistic lecture, which would mean, if he did not abscond, then he would certainly be executed. Now his death appears as the most masterfully staged of all Elizabethan plays, a well-concealed intrigue performed obscurely, just to make a show of a most controversial poet's demise, for the obvious purpose to just let him be, remain alive, and go on with his work, but under cover for security. Thus Shakespeare enters as a mediator for the continuity of Marlowe's drama, although modified, to let it grow in ever more astounding glory, in its mighty lines on stage, to never die, like Macbeth, Hamlet, and Othello, Julius Caesar and the mighty Tamburlaine the Great, most threatening and most immortal menace of them all. Marlowe och Shakespeare. Jag kan inte hjälpa det, men i det dramaverk av poesi som under sekler nu har publicerats under Shakespeares namn, så hör jag omisskännligt Marlowes mäktiga verseraders språkfest och rytmik, som om det bakom Hamlet och Othello, Julius Caesar och Macbeth, det dolde sig en Tamburlaine i underjorden, djupt begraven men ej bortglömd eller död, i ständigt återuppstånden, oöverträffad och beständig grymhet. Marlowes tema som ju återkommer ständigt genom Juden, hertigen av Guise och doktor Faustus öde och den olycklige Edward. Mördare och begraven till de trista puritanernas triumf och skadeglädje. Ärelöst och gudlöst anonymt bortsmusslad ner i jorden för att ersättas av Shakespeares tuktade tillrättalagda modifikationer, utan kontroversiellt bagage, men med en desto mera triumfartad poesi, besegrande all fåfänga och död i bolmande skön verskonst, i den rakaste kontinuitet från Marlowes dramer. Det har sedermera visat sig att Marlowe var i svårigheter, anklagad för ateism och homosexualitet och andra allvarliga kontroverser, fräckt nog publicerade av honom själv i form av emot kyrkan och samhällets ordning riktade pamfletter samt en ateistisk föreläsning, vilket, om man inte undkom, skulle innebära avrättning direkt. Nu framstår hans sorti genom en iscensatt död som det mest praktfullt genomförda av den tidens dramer, en väldold intrig i löndom utförd, bara för att dölja väl en kontroversiell poets försvinnande, för att blott tydligen få låta honom vara och förbli vid liv och fortsätta arbeta, men för säkerhetens skull i skydd av annat namn. Så kommer Shakespeare in i bilden som en medlare för kontinuitetens skull av Marlowes drama, nu modifierat, för att låta detta växa i en ständigt högre härlighet i mäktig vers på scen, för att som Hamlet och Othello, Julius Caesar och Macbeth ej någonsin dö bort och tystna, liksom Tamburlaine den store, störst och överlägsnast, som den mest odödligt hotfulle av alla. the dream of you. All I ever gave you is for keeps. I'll never take a moment back of all that we have had together, which I gave you for your own forever. When resources end and our bond is broken, we shall still have all our dreams, the memories of more treasurability than any mundane stuff for base consumption, like you entered me to constantly remain there as a chronic inflammation in my heart of beauty of a most contagious kind, since it has permeated all my life and does so still and more than ever, as if I could never do without you, even when long after we have left each other. Let it be, let it remain so, let the paradise continue, let the garden of our love continue growing for the benefit of all, and for the cure of everything that wasn't born of love and beauty. A sermon, the lady to her frustrated wooer. My dear, it will not do to argue. We are not of that sort that will listen to an angry voice impassioned by frustrated blindness of misguided egoism you thought was love, but only was a bolt carried away into the dark. You cannot build a dialogue or a relationship of any kind on one part's will, since listening is always more important for the dialogue and the relationship to live at all, than just to talk and give free reins to any gallop which is bound to run amok if you don't check it. There is no one who can judge or know or feel another's feelings. They are sacred to the individual as the most personal possession she will ever have, and none has any right to touch them or to importuningly take them for granted. Love can never be assumed or taken casually for granted. That is the supreme presumption and a minefield that will just explode into your face if you tread carelessly into it. Love and feelings is an abyss, a descending into hell, where you shall never find a way out unless guided solely by your love, which always must be pure. That is the only lighthouse in the stormy night, the purity, sincerity, and the profundity of selfless love that never makes presumptions, never takes for granted, never risks to hurt or trample others' feelings down, but always moves with carefulness and tenderness to only silently adore and cherish with the utmost care, preferably to never even dare to touch it. Flying on broken wings. Love is an idealism which only can survive as such. You have to idolize your love or it will die, and anything subverting, acting to debase your love from its ideal ground will, unless checked, destroy and kill it. It will keep alive as long as it may keep on flying, and no longer, for when wings no longer can uphold it, keeping it on constant upright course and ever striving higher, it will fall by lack of air under its wings, and lose the freedom that was all the nourishment of love. But I will be your tears when you, forlorn on earth, emotionally shipwrecked like a nightingale with broken wings, have nothing else to do but to cry out your heart, to be there when you cry, and you shall find me in your very tears, to lift you up again on golden wings in warbling song, where we shall fly together in the sun and cry our hearts out in our song of freedom. Danger! Another sleepless night. One day without you is just a waste of time, an irreparable, outrageous loss, a day of mourning and a day robbed of your life, to be remembered with dishonor as the worst investment of your time. Frustrated, you can never be more angry, since you never can have that one day repaired, and you can never have it back. How then shall we avoid such losses, such catastrophes, calamities, fatalities, and fearful, unforgivable, unheard of dropouts in the future? we had better sleep together constantly and never let each other out of sight, or else we might get lost on erring, fateful paths of straying wilderness, to lose our basic touch, the only life we have, which is our love, which needs togetherness. Simplistic statement. Our love is holy and divine, and therefore so untouchable for others even to suspect the nature of its truth and honesty. But let them think the worst, and we shall do our best to keep it going, flowing, flying in the bliss of our secret, which is just in all simplicity that we can never do without each other any more. Let's stick to that then, and forget that ever we were tempted to imagine there was any other possibility for us than just to live exclusively within each other. Magnetism. To just lie quietly and dream of you is such a full-time work that nothing could be more exhausting, since nothing could more permeate my life, my being, my existence, than your being, which is all I have at heart, to boast of and to cherish, as a drunkard his last bottle. Let's enjoy it then, and drink it up before it is too late, and that wine gets too sour to be relished properly. We have it here and now, so let's just get together and get stuck together, never to let go of our love. Friends, a kind of definition. Love is indefinable and strange, a weird adventure of capricious risks, with everything at stake and nothing really to be won except experience, which always is for good and worse. And those who have enough experience of the controversial kind and have found out the traps and fallacies and vanities of human hearts know all too well that love is just a dangerous attraction to get burned and damaged by for life, with sometimes losses irreparable to keep on crying over for a lifetime sentence, and reduce therefore their love's ambition to the acquisition of a lasting friendship. That's the best thing actually that can be gained by love, a lasting, ever more enriching and developing reward. So if you really want true love and keep it, just make sure to make your love's best friend, and then be constant in your love's ambition to retain and cultivate that friendship. Some conciliatory advice. When a man tires of love, he tires of life. And when he's tired of life, there is always death to resort to, as if that could be something better, which it is to failed lovers who have given up. So, whatever you give up in life, never give up love, since that is actually all you have to make life worthwhile rather than death. And remember how love can offer you all sorts of extra things, like hang-ups, down-unders, dissolution in tears, bereavement, deception, and smothering frustration. But the miracle is that you still can go on loving, which, in spite of all, sometimes is a better thing to do than to stop loving. Love and death. Never mix your love with such absurdities as base illusions of mortality. Love doesn't go along with death, since love is just the opposite. And if a love relationship fades out and dies, it simply wasn't true love, since you recognize it by its talent for survival, spiting any obstacle, surmounting all adversities, and just continuing to grow, develop, and increase forever if you want. Mortality and death is only an illusion which, at best, transports love definitely to infinity. Work situation. You just can't help it, falling asleep all the time, in front of the silly computer,
which just gives you any amount of silly jobs, boring jobs, tedious jobs. So you just fall asleep trying to handle them, and then, since you keep falling asleep, you can't get any work done in front of the computer, which all the time insists on sending you to sleep. Whatever you try to work with, your concentration is sabotaged by your falling asleep. So your boring work keeps mounting in heaps for you to keep falling asleep by, which problem keeps you awake at night, so that then you never can sleep anymore, thinking of all that work that keeps growing, since you always fall asleep trying to deal with it, while, when all you can do is to think about it, it just keeps you awake, as if falling asleep at your work was something to worry about, to keep you awake when all you would want is to sleep. Äkta vara. Jag tänker bara på dig, min älskade, fast jag inte känner dig. Jag känner inte kärlekens språk, men jag känner kvinnan och älskar henne, och äkta kärlek behöver inget språk. Allt väsentligt står skrivet mellan raderna, och att utlägga och förklara det är att förstöra det, genom konkretiseringens vulgaritet och förfulning, det grövsta av helgerån. Så låt min rena kärlekstanke vara helig i fred, och kräv intet mera än dess äkthet, som är det enda kärleken kräver för att överleva. Honesty lasts longer. I only think of you, my love, although I do not know thee. I know not mortal languages of love, but I know woman, and I love her, and true love does not need any language. Everything important reads between the lines, and to explain it and evaluate it is to ruin it, by the vulgarity of coarse debasing concretization, the most heinous and supreme of sacrileges. So leave my pure thoughts of love in sacred peace, and do not ask for more than all its honesty, which is the only thing love needs to keep surviving. Fjärilsliv. Varför måste relationer göra ont som straff för att de existerar? Skyddet är en sårbarhetens blygsel som blott lider genom sin ömtålighet. Är ensamheten någon bot? Den helar så att man blir djärv nog att ånyo fria till förintelsen i relationer, och på nytt blir skadad i sin sårbarhet och påmind om ömtålighetens smärta, som gör mera ont än någon fysisk sådan. Så består den onda cirkeln, relationernas självdestruktivitet, som ljuset i en fjärils liv, som den blott lever för att få bli vidbränd vid. Butterfly existence. Why must love relationships give so much pain, as something of a punishment for their existence? The protection is a shyness of vulnerability, which suffers from its brittle delicacy. Is then loneliness a kind of cure? It heals for certain, so that you get bold enough to woo the holocaust of new relationships, to get shot down again in your exposed heart, and painfully reminded of the pangs of wounded love, more damaging and aching than all physical affliction. Thus the vicious circle carries on and never ends, the self-destructiveness of plain relationships, like that alluring candle in a butterfly existence, which she lives for only to get burned by. Kvantitetssamhället. Det är bara kvantiteten som räknas. Ju större kvantitet, desto bättre. Desto större konsumtion, desto bättre lönsamhet. Det kvittar vad det gäller, det är bara kvantiteten som gäller. Så låt mänskligheten föröka ihjäl sig. Det leder bara till större konsumtion och lönsamhet. Låt allting dränkas i den skenande kvantitetsproduktionens lönsamhet, så länge den bara lönar sig. Låt konsumtionskravens syndaflodslaviner bara hålla på och breda ut sig, ty det bara lönar sig. Så vad spelar då kvaliteten längre för roll? Ingen alls i lönsamhetens djungelns lags skenande karusell, som ju bara är till för att köra över allt som inte lönar sig. Så glöm det här med kulturkvalitet och skrota den. Låt rengångbar slang ersätta språket. Låt skvalflödet av kitschmusik ta över alla media och med sin hjärntvätt dåna ihjäl all mera harmonisk musik, och glöm det här med att läsa böcker. Vi har ju skvalunderhållning med reklaminslag på TV. 24 timmars såpoperor med skrattkörer varje dag istället. Så man slipper skärpa sig inför. Så glöm det här med kvalitetslitteratur och all kvalitet överhuvudtaget, som bara envisas med att överleva sig själv och trots allt finnas kvar, kämpande för livet i den hysteriska lönsamhetens obligatoriska, ständigt accelererande kvantitetsproduktioners syndaflod. Strangers. How is it that the more we love each other, the more difficult it gets for us to explain ourselves and understand each other, as if we still were strangers, never having known each other, and for all our experience constantly know and understand each other less. And still, this alien feeling of estrangement from each other forces us together more and keeps us more ligated to each other, as if the more our contact and communication grows in truth, intimacy, intensity, and codependence, the least lack of our togetherness feels the more confounding and confusing and upsetting turbulence, as something utmost unacceptable to our existence, as if the minutest dissonance in our relationship was more upsetting than the most catastrophic of earthquakes. Doubtfulness. When I sit quietly at bay in dreams and sipping piously my glass of wine and think of you and our strange love, as skeptic as I ever was, if not considerably more, since age does not retard your criticism, but rather turns it constantly more critical, I question everything and is irrevocably doubtful about life and death, eternity, infinity, and holiness, and must reevaluate existence thoroughly and desperately without end, and must arrive eventually at one conclusion. Everything is doubtful, nothing is to be relied on, nothing is for certain, but for one thing, the uniqueness of the truth of that strange love I feel for you. På verkstaden. Min arbetsplats kallas populärt för verkstaden. Där kan man coola av och coola av genom överkursarbete. Motorn i mitt liv går sönder då och hamnar på reparation och ligger där och rostar tills den hamnar under isen och glöms bort och skrotar för att snart disintegrera. Men det märkvärdiga är att plötsligt kommer rycket i en hopplös kallstart som fungerar, och i uppförsbacke dessutom. Och det otroligaste händer att man faktiskt överlever och kör vidare med gnissel och i motvind, ständig uppförsbacke och protest och rasslande, rostiga lösa skruvar, som om huvudet bestod av bara sådana. Men det är bara att gå på och rulla på så länge hjulen går runt till nästa skrotning och punktering för en ny besvärlig omgång på en verkstadstork med rehabilitering så att man kan skrota lite till. Elementär metafysik. Det måste finnas en Gud. Vi har inget val. Annars är allting och livet förlorat. Total ateism är den slutgiltiga kapitulationen och det mest livsfientliga av allt. Ty det mest onaturliga av allt är att ge upp. Om livet går med på att ge upp har det ingen mening, och därför måste det ha en mening eftersom det existerar, och därför måste det finnas en Gud, en idé över alla andra, en konstruktivitet och eget initiativ som leder det. Så enkelt är det. The elementary simplicity of metaphysics. There must exist some kind of God. We have no choice, or else all life and everything is lost. For total atheism is nothing but the ultimate capitulation, the utmost enmity to life, since most unnatural war is to give up. If life gives up, it has no meaning, therefore it must have a meaning, since at all it does exist, and therefore there must be a God, as an idea above all others, an initiative and constructivity, all of its own that guides it. That's the elementary simplicity of metaphysics. Golden love. In hues all golden, like a long-desired dreamt of child, as innocent as newborn, always positive and full of life. Where does that inner beauty come from, that outshines the sun and make all clouds disperse? A joy of simply being what you are in glorious independence, and yet nothing is what it appears to seem. There is a front completely hiding abysses of worrying desperation, like a poker face which you can't know if its expressionlessness hides a full hand or just misery. But souls know better human hearts than outward shows, and we knew well each other from the start, like two lost souls diverted many centuries ago, to find themselves on mutual path by chance again, like a lost thread of fortune suddenly revealed and rediscovered, to be recommenced and now continued on a fresh start, right into the ever-circulating spiral of eternity, to once again engulf us in its course on yet another round of this intriguing game of love unto infinity. Deep throat message. Let me write you something really shocking and unheard of in this Puritan community of squeamish sensitivity and no remorse, no tolerance for anything outstandingly upsetting, so let's just calm down and be prepared. The secret is that everything is back to normal, metaphysics and their balance is restored. The turmoil of the two world wars and their barbarity is over, done with, the atomic age is finished. The horrific Cold War with its terror balance is a fairy tale to frighten little children with. We cured it all, we angels of the hippie metaphysic rainbow movement, by our prayers and the honesty and energy of our will and its constructiveness, so just forget about it. There are new fronts and intrinsic problems coming up, the global warming, problematical complexities above all, and the complex of America's megalomania, with an irresponsible administration trying most pathetically, childishly to cover up the Pentagon reports of long ago that gave the full agenda of the global warming consequences, while the Bush administration chose to comfortably look the other way and cover it all up like any ostrich in the desert. Pardon me for saying so and for revealing these state secrets, but our work has only started. All of you who joined us in the 60s, starting those hullabaloos against the governmental military fascism, have to just keep going on and keep it up. In universal hippie demonstration just for love against all violence, to save the future of the planet and our children. Since we owe it all to them, that life we loved and must be kept alive in all its beauty for the sake of just the sentimental joy of it, for the protection of our human feelings, which is all that keeps humanity alive. Closeness. Far too little we were able to enjoy each other, far too little we could meet embracing tenderly, and far too short our unions ever lasted in comparison with the immeasurable greatness of our love, which, although it kept us together constantly in spirit, that session of eternity of love was just a minute to that lifetime of that love we did deserve. Unfair is life to lovers, never really granting them what they deserve and need and should have naturally. And the greater and more tender and profound their love, the grosser life's injustice looms in terror, like a most unhuman vengeance just for nothing but their happiness. So must we be content with our humiliation, bow to fate in humble piety, prostration and subordination, just in order to survive as lovers, to at least maintain that love that keeps us closer to each other in our spirits than we ever can be joined on earth. The most beautiful poem of love. The most beautiful poem of love was never written and never shall, for its lips were sealed by its kisses, exchanging such secrets of intimacy, of such tremendous profundity and capacity, that the power was too overwhelming to bear being put down in words of profaneness and simple reality, since anything less than the top of it was just a debasement unworthy of truth, the which honesty simply was all time too high to ever be capable of being made understandable, which only they can grasp and be convinced of who know the importance of letting love speak for itself. Right or wrong, my love, how much do you love me? What an impertinent question, and totally irrelevant at that. The point is that I love you, and more than that I have no right to claim. For love is only giving, never taking. When love is made with an agenda, it is not love but politics and egoism, while love is truth as long as it is given only without any reservations or demands. And if another element is mixed in it, then just forget it. Then it's better to leave love alone and put it in a nunnery. And that's the touchstone which must always be applied and implemented, the continuous trial, doubts and questionings, the constant conscience, asking questions of the only valid kind. Is this then right, what I am doing? It is only right as long as you are loving. Backfire. Never try the same weapon again if once it has backfired. Love is not love if you suffer from it. If it hurts you and gives you pain, it is not love, but an abortion, a mistake, abuse, or accident. And it will only become worse if you don't leave at once, forgetting all about it. If you struggle on and waste your faith on what has fallen, trying to believe it will recover, giving it a second chance, and then a third, a fourth, and so on, leading only to increased self-torture, self-destruction, wounds that constantly go deeper, hurting more the more you keep supporting it, then that will be the end of your integrity, your peace of mind, your harmony and health, your good sleep and the order of your life. Your only chance is keeping your love straight and in constructive order, or it simply will not work. And nothing but the highest effort of the greatest expertise can make love work if once it has been violated. The Crying Tree, a true story. It was a lady who told me the story. She was staying in a house out in the country with an ancient giant oaken tree quite close, with branches stretching over it and roots down deep under the basement. She found difficulty sleeping in this house, and gradually the aches began in all her limbs, which she could not explain, since there was nothing wrong with her. No sleep, and aches all over, unexplainable, and then a total sadness that just made her cry for nothing, while the pains increased intolerably. Suddenly she realized it was that old tree affecting her. Her female empathy had found communion with a tree which recently had had 2 giant branches cut, which now the tree was seized with anguish for, in pain trying to heal and not to bleed to death. The tree was something like 300 years of age, and at that age to have some amputation is no easy matter. Trees are human and their DNA is close to our own. It has been proved that when some trees are cut down in a forest, it is felt by other trees, and even trees as far away as in the very other end of that same forest, which is like an organism and a community, where all the trees cooperate, communing with each other. That was something about trees, their sensitivity and human feelings, and about the fact how actually it hurts in all Dame Nature when they are cut down. Det gråtande trädet, en sann historia. Det var en dam som berättade historien. Hon bodde i ett hus på landet med en gammal väldig ek helt nära, vilkas grenar sträckte sig omkring det och med rötter under källaren. Hon fann det svårt att sova här i detta hus och småningom så började det göra ont i alla leder, vilket var omöjligt att förklara då hon var helt frisk och hade inga fel. Värk överallt och hopplös sömnlöshet, helt oförklarligt och så en förtvivlad sorg så att hon bara grät för ingenting, allt medan smärtorna blott tilltog outhärdligt. Plötsligt fattade hon saken. Det var trädet som påverkat henne. Hennes empati hade fört henne i kontakt med eken som helt nyligen fått 2 väldiga grenar kapade, vilket givit trädet sådan bitter smärta i konvalescensens helande process och i försöket och ansträngningen att ej förblöda. Trädet var 200 år minst, och vid en så avancerad ålder är amputation en känslig sak. Ty träd är mänskliga, har känslor och har nästan samma DNA som vi. Det har bevisats att när träd huggs ner i skogen känner andra träd det längst bort i den samma skogen, som är som en organism och social kommun, där alla träd kommunicerar, samarbetar och hör samman med varandra. Det har bevisats att när träd huggs ner i skogen känner andra träd det längst bort i den samma skogen, som är som en organism och social kommun där alla träd kommunicerar, samarbetar och hör samman med varandra. Det var någonting om träd, om deras känslighet och mänsklighet och om det faktum hur det faktiskt gör ordentligt ont för hela mornaturen när det sågas ner. The poisoned Falun Gong practitioner. So far 800 cases like this have become known. I don't know what they do to me. I have been here now for I don't know how long, but I am not alone at least. We are a number in this concentration camp, but I don't know how many, since I cannot count correctly anymore. I don't know why they make us invalids, unfit for work, disqualified for anything, perhaps to show the world how dumb we are, as if the world would close their eyes to what we were before we were sequestered, isolated and imprisoned, just for sticking faithfully to universalism, the association with the cosmic mind in Lao Tzu's and Buddha's imitation, which for some strange reason the authorities decided to have us exterminated for. But I must say their methods are peculiar. We are loaded, force-fed with destructive drugs. We don't know which. They put them in our food or they inject them into us by force, so we become like vegetables, losing the control of our bodies, of our mind and memory, our faculty for analytical and logic thought, our will to reason and our energy to live, while at the same time we of course become unfit for work. and merely exist as zombies lying down in our beds like wrecks, but wrecked on purpose. Why? Because we had free minds, believed in something better, stuck to our cultural traditions, aimed for some religious higher meaning of our lives. I just don't understand why our authorities insist on undermining and destroying everything that chose a different path from the established lies of their dictatorship, as if that was a sensible activity which no one in the world can see how it could lead to anything except destruction. Den förgiftade falungong-utövaren. Hittills har ett 800-tal fall blivit kända. Jag vet inte vad det gör med mig. Jag har nu varit här, jag vet ej alls hur länge, men jag är åtminstone ej ensam. Vi är här ett antal i vårt läger, men hur många vet jag inte, och jag inte längre rätt kan räkna. Jag vet inte varför det gör oss till invalider, gör oss helt odugliga till vad som helst. Kanske för att visa världen hur misslyckade vi är. Som om den världen kunde blunda för vad vi var förut, innan vi blev isolerade och fängslade. För att vi troget höll oss fast vid universalismen, själens heliga gemenskap och samhörighet med kosmos i Lao Tses och Buddhas efterföljd, för vilket myndigheterna av någon anledning beslöt att likvidera och utrota oss. Men jag tycker nog att deras sätt är märkligt. Vi tvångsmatas och tvångsinjiceras med okända nedbrytande droger. Vi vet icke av vad slag som det placerar i vår mat, så att vi långsamt blir passiviserade som grönsaker, förlorar kroppskontrollen och vårt minne, vår identitet och själva sinnet, all vår kritiska och logiska förmåga, all vår strävan efter att förstå och resonera och vår levnadsenergi, samtidigt som naturligtvis vi tappar all arbetsförmåga och blir så som zombies som blott ligger döende i sina sängar, liksom vrak som avsiktligt körts upp på stranden och kasserats. Varför? För att vi var fria i vår ande, trodde innerligt på något bättre, höll oss till kulturen och dess traditioner, strävade och sökte efter någon högre mening med vårt liv. Jag fattar inte varför våra myndigheter insisterar på att ruinera och förgöra allt som visar på en annan väg från deras lögners, diktaturers etablissemang. Som om det var en vettig verksamhet som ingen i vår värld kan se hur det kan leda någon annanstans än till förintelse. Scratch. When love is shattered, it is just a trial, since your love can never be completely violated. Even if they kill you, they will not be able to obstruct your love, which is the only continuity you have. The trials are for facing and surviving, the adversities are for withstanding, the defeats are for surmounting and defeating with a vengeance and in glory, for your love can never be completely vanquished. Although all the rapes and violations in the world assail you, and you are humiliated beyond recognition and recovery. Whatever happens, you will always have something remaining, and if only you can start from scratch, you can accomplish anything. The constant heartbreak risk. I would gladly sacrifice my life for you. The problem is, I have no life to sacrifice. It belongs to others, to all those I owe my passion and responsibility, which I am too absorbed by and engaged in to be able ever to let go, and you are simply one of them. My heart belongs to you, though, and there is but one and only one it can belong to. So that is your privilege, which no one else can claim. I have no life, I have no time, no leisure, and no peace. I share my whirlwind of activities with the whole world, but I do have a heart, and it belongs to you. Passion. How much can I love you without being consumed? How far can I go driving on in bolting downhill race of love without falling to my ruin? How far can I drive my own self-torment in the limitlessness of the irresistibility, in the mad rage and lunacy of love? That is precisely the infernal crux, that love can have no limitation, but it must last forever, or it can't exist at all. Tiresome authorities. Do not let the lack of musicality disturb you. Just ignore the nonsense that does not sound well. Leave out the ugliness of everything unhuman, and survive the holocaust of junk and waste, so miserably flooding our tortured civilization. All that counts is music that is never tired of, the melodies that always will be sung, the words that cannot be forgotten, and the poetry that never will give up surviving. Leave the nonsense to mortality, ignore the inundations of oppression by authorities. It is but blather to be buried, vanishing in thin air, worthless as all exercise of power ever was, dissolving with its noise to nothing, like all unsound noise forever will. Since there will always be musical minds like ours, to forever sort them out as mere disturbances, like all noise signifying nothing. My mistress, you are always there, enwrapped in mystery and strange untouchability, and I have never once succeeded in deceiving you, since you alone could master me, and without even trying. I belonged to you and gave myself completely up to you from the beginning, without ever giving you away. My mystic love shall never be located and identified. And you will only so remain as long as you remain untouched by the debasing hands of mortal worldliness. My honour and my pride is to belong to you, and to have done so without ever failing you, with all my efforts to deceive you having turned out dismal failures. But our love is not a failure, but the contrary, a humble but consistently improving and increasing story of success, but clandestinely only, to remain forever intact as a mystery of truth and love and life. The Working Artist's Catechism. All I need to go is just some beauty, not disturbed by any ugliness, some positive environment without destructive elements, to dream and think in peace creatively, without importuning brutality to wake you up, harmonious and melodious music without noise, and friends to cheer you up, instead of negligent and ignorant indifference around you, and so forth. Some gratitude, appreciation, recognition of the good you try to do in life, instead of insolence, ingratitude, and inhumanity. Is that to ask too much? I need not money, wealth, or property. I have no greed to satisfy. But let my spirit just go on, remaining active and constructive, and let time take notice of it, and not just completely let me down. And I shall be content when I'm dead to have at least been working hard in all my life to some result of more than only nothingness. Keep the lights on. Love is not to be resisted, but it must be thoroughly controlled, or it might bolt destructively. Ignore all limits of all sense and decency and finish itself off, which is the last thing we desire. Better then to keep it glowing, not exploding into open fire, but to keep us warm in quiet peace, avoiding turbulent eruptions, to instead remain a lasting comfort. For if love does not import longevity and health, it hardly is a love that will do any good, but fizzle like a match that broke, instead of catching fire to spread light to others also, and not only to ourselves. Could have been worse. You are just the sort of girl to make a fellow like myself just fall in love with, to remain so, fallen down to earth, in hopeless worship and obsequious servitude, if not forever, then at least for an eternity of all the present, like a doting loony, having nothing in his head but one idea, the only thing he ever more can think of, his fixation, his love in dumbstruck idiocy, like a serious disease with no cure whatsoever, the most hopeless case imaginable, doomed to dotage for eternity. Is there no hope at all for me then? That depends on you. If you can love me in return, then there is something to hang on to, like a spider's thread from some skyscraper rooftop, saving me from falling all way down to straight perdition, which instead will lift me up to that incredibility of heaven which is nothing more than just the company of you. The lie of loneliness. You'll never be alone as long as you just love another, which is just accepting some responsibility of someone else's life as well as yours. That other will then be with you, not sticking right under your skin, but all the closer stay within your soul, in even closer, steadier contact than by a physical approach, which tempts to aberrations like misunderstandings and illusions, while the soul alone will always be the same. If you have got her soul inside you, you can never lose her, but she will remain your company forever if you love her, and there never could be any finer company. The honest actor. What care I about the audience? I am not a flatterer of senseless masses, where the individual is lost in lack of personal integrity, and is not noticed by his acquiescent silence. No, I want to have just friends around me, audiences of individuals that are alive and I can find some contact with faces that you can identify and one by one observe, so that you can direct yourself to real people. If the theatre is almost empty, does not bother me. The play is the important thing, and all the truth of it. And if I can't get through to audiences of anonymous masses, then I'd rather stay without and find myself some meaningful soliloquies instead. The truth, the meaning, and the word is all. And if it's valid, a few members of an audience is enough. In fact, the fewer and the less, the better, for the easier you'll get the message through. Controlled enthusiasm. Can you imagine how much I love you? Each time I see you, my heart wishes to burst out in song, like in some old-time funny childish romantic musical, and there is nothing really that can stop me. All that music of my love just gushes forth in overwhelming floods of heartfelt heartiness, like some deluvian of unprecedented generosity. And still, my life is so sincere and careful that I always can contain myself, refraining from at any cost to hurt you, or approach you too unseemingly and importuningly. But, love, you can be sure it is all there, and growing constantly in splendour and abundance, as is unavoidable in such a long engagement, growing more sincere and beautiful the longer it goes on. The straitjacket. Life is a straitjacket, being constantly tied tighter, like in a kind of sadistic vice of pain, unceasingly increased and getting worse with the years, like in a kind of self-tormentor's paradise. Who enjoys it is a self-tormentor, while all realists can only find suffering and more suffering as long as they live, for reality is never beautiful. The joys and beauties of life are restricted to flash moments of rare oases, like dream moments ending abruptly at once, transcending instantly into the dark dreary night again, which always dominates and never ends. No, I love not life, this nightmare prison of pains, this eternity of misery and baseness, ugliness and evil, cruelty and tyranny, where the least evil of everything, paradoxical enough, is that never-ending suffering, which is the only thing that keeps life going on. Another friendship. Going down into the darkness of the soul, where you must perish in the jungles of unconscious mysteries. Everything is darkness and without relief, and you get muddled up in hopelessly entangling complications of emotions like a web of feelings of remorse and guilt, and there is nothing that can save you from this well in which you are cast down unknown of all and all alone, and only one thing can still save you. Some miraculous relationship of lasting friendship, some warm heart that understands your own, and it is always there, quite ready and alert to save you, by just being there and listening and sharing your affection. All you have to do is just to find that waiting friend. Games people play. Life is just a game, and the more peculiar forms it takes, the more advanced its purposes and methods, the more seriously it takes itself, the more childish it becomes, since even world wars are just children's plays, in kindergarten backyard playing grounds, completely irresponsible and stupid, just a whim of vanity like any world war. More advanced as children's plays are then activities of loneliness, not affecting others, and the first of these is naturally and of course creation, building new worlds out of nothing, piously engendering new enterprises and ideas. But the most elevated art of creativity is still just only children's play, an act of vanity of no more serious consequence than any fun in any kindergarten. Passport to eternity. Let me die with thoughts of love of you, as passport to eternity across the river of mortality. And never let me leave that passport or forget it, but maintain it always closest to my heart, as evidence that I at least got something out of life that wasn't only foolishness. Thus let me keep it for my only medicine against all evils, dark moods, and obsessions, and my only trustworthy insurance against losses. For if only I have you, I know I have the universe, since all there ever was worth having, everybody knows, is love. The impressibility of love. Let there be no day without a love poem to you, my only and immortal love and muse of beauty. But I humbly beg your pardon when at times I fail. But let those momentary instances then be the more expressive of the actual inexpressibility of my true love, that cannot even hide itself by silence. That is actually the truest form of love expression, the sincerest touch of silence, tenderer than any language of sweet words, and never able of misunderstandings. Let me love you thus in silence of eternity, and let that silent language bloom in tenderness, to last forever, even longer than the sweetest poems of the sweetest love that ever was expressed. The secret of your beauty. It is not only that you were so loved and lovable, but that you were so much of that not just by anyone, but there was someone closer to you even than myself, who loved you self-effacingly and all through life, until it ended with a broken heart. That heart must never be forgotten, especially not now, when it has passed away, transcended and transformed into a spirit even more profoundly loving, self-effacing and adoring that peculiar beauty and intensity of yours, amounting to a beauty that can turn just anyone into a madness of psychotic and exaggerated, self-consuming, reckless love, as if the element of beauty by its mere existence must result in unintentional but endless reckless cruelty. I will not go into that trap, but all the same remain your lover, most respectfully and humbly to enjoy the highest privilege of being just your best and closest friend. Beyond love. How could you ever doubt me? How could my sincere love give you such misgivings? Was my honesty not honest quite enough? Was my sincerity too clouded in the shyness of sincerity? Were my deep feelings not profound enough to be convincing? Was my love not clear enough to be considerable, and as such be taken seriously? But you see only deep into the soul and heart, for which the outward spoken language and appearances do not mean anything compared to what you see inside. And that is maybe ultimately my reward, that you get nothing for my courting, but the more for the endurance of my soul. I should be grateful then that finally you found my soul beyond all mountains of expressions of my love. Twilight love. It never fades, the sun will never set on the eternal twilight of true love that constantly glows warmer with eternity that never fades. So shall I dream of you forever, never waking from the sweetness of that lingering sentimentality of an eternal sunset that but keeps on growing in maturity and beauty, fascination and intensity, the more it keeps on lasting, like a dream that no one ever wanted to awaken from and no one ever really needed to. Within. We are within each other and therefore cannot lose each other, being both together in each other's minds, completely stuck forever, independent of what happens, independent of deceit and jealousy, completely independent both and simultaneously dependent, and most desperately so, of this our codependence. Your chief worry is, how will this end? With all our troubles, sorrows, griefs and worries, how can anything come out of it of any good? How could it possibly end well, when there is nothing but adversity ahead of us? Let's leave it and just live, since we at least do have each other, at least for the moment, but all eternity is just a moment. And if a momentary love be true, then this small moment of togetherness is greater and more worth than all eternity. Pining. The worst of all outrageous suffering is never to get through with love, but always desperately having it grow worse, disastrously encouraged by its disappointments and preposterously nourished by its shortcomings, as if the rule was, the more tragic and the worse it goes, the more uphill and tortuous the via crucis must become, which never ends by death in spite of all the crucifixions. Could it then be even worse than what it is already? That's the ultimate and utter irony, that when it couldn't any more get more unbearable, then it will simply double in excruciating pain and trouble, and just start all over from a fresh and worse beginning. How then can we stand all this, we tortured lovers? That's the greatest mystery of all, that we just carry on and start from the beginning every time again, and thus the world and life and love goes on in agonies increasingly forever. After the storm, somewhere beyond the horizon, something is clearing up beyond the hurricane waves. A ship is coming in after shipwrecks and losses galore. After the storm of the blackest clouds, and on the shore someone is waiting. What corpses aboard, what losses, how many are missing, never to be found. It doesn't matter. The only important thing is that the storm is over and the ship is back. Whether with bad news or good, for better or for worse, is nothing compared to the one fact that at least someone has survived. Reconciliation. Let us never meet without there being music from the stars around us, without both of us together smiling, without mutual harmony encompassing the universe, and without only love between us. Let us always meet without there being tears and grief in our souls, without destructive strife embittering our lives, without clouds of anger hanging anywhere about, and without any one of us not being in the mood for love and creativity, for joy and constructivity, and for being fully open to each other without any reservations as regards the truth of everything and most of all of our love. Perilous flight. Don't you know me anymore? You claim you are not there when you are there. You are not reachable at home when you are home. Your spirit is dispersed and vanished out of sight, in constant flight, escaping from the troubles of mundanity, evading the ridiculous controversies and childishness, like all controversies forever were and are, just soaring on the wings of music, harmony and beauty, while the worries grow beneath you, reaching for you, like an evil silent octopus in merciless indifferent greed, seeks out the swimmer to engulf him in the abyss of the tragedy of life that none of us escapes forever. I will not disturb you, but protect you in your flight, in preparation safely on the ground, to watch you like a guardian angel, not from above but under you, to be your catcher in the rye, and keep you up by stronger winds on firmer wings than any bird or butterfly or angel ever used, since I'm always flying with you, not on wings of vain escape, but reaching ever forward for the light of love that never fails. Your grave. The grass is fragrant on your grave, and grows increasingly forever green, to match the generosity you always showed yourself to everyone who knew you without any one exception. That is lingering around us in the air, your love that never failed but made you stay, in spite of your atrocious sufferings and pain, among us on and on, until no love could hold you any longer, from exploding out into the universe, to there continue flowing generously all around us, which we feel still more than clearly and are grateful for, and will remain so, for as long as there will still be anyone among us to remember you with the identical warm love that always marked your personality, to make it unforgettable as an example for your friends and relatives to cling to, since that love is bound to never die. My bleeding heart. The softness of my heart is bleeding for you constantly. Where is that music gone that used to sing for you? Where is that melody that whispered in my ear, you love her more than you can tell forever? Where is all that softness gone that I enjoyed so much, in endless nights of wallowing in sensual orgies of all universal passion let insanely loose, in ecstasies of beauty, happiness and madness? When at last may I express my love to you as you are worth it, with my limitless and bottomless profound respect, immersed, bound up together with my total passion of sincerity and endless worship of your soul and body? I will not destroy you, only worship you and love you, and much rather perish all alone and far away from you at a safe distance in my self-consuming passion than risk hurting any of the frailty of your tender feelings. Let me love you, nothing can stop me from doing so, but let me never risk trespassing any of your wounds that I will never be the one to hazard opening again. My touch of love will be the softest that a lover ever felt. I must insist on reassuring you, since I know better than most lovers what it feels to bleed to death, just of a tender loving heart that loves too much and never can stop doing so in self-consuming, self-inflicted, voluntary crucifixion of a love that knows no bounds of passion. The morning after. That night with you I was exhausted and no good for you, for love, for anything, in my irritability that could not stop, just being worn out, good for nothing. But my love was there, still aching in my heart and bleeding desperately, calling for you, longing for you urgently to come and help me in my agony of bitterness, delusion and remorse for all that life of mine that failed and turned me into just a miserable beggar. Sorry, madam, and I beg your pardon that I was not good enough for you, but still I love you more than ever, even though I am the only one convinced of that. Bedlock. The sun is not so bright as you are when you rise, in all your glory from your bed, transmitting beauty with your light, more wonderful than any blessings shed from any queen of beauty by surprise. Childishly I must surmise that you transcend all lovely hours fled of pleasures past and gone in flight, while I remain with you till sunrise, going on until we die and wed to never leave each other more in bed. Thus, my love, I cherish thee to madness, never more to fade in sadness. The honourable suicide. He didn't mean to, but it just went on that way. He just loved life his own way, scrapping his career, abandoning himself to ecstasy alone, the joy of living, making all the best of it to the extreme, maniacal perhaps and drunk most of the time, but always beautiful as character and lovable. The handsomest of young men in his prime, a prophet when advanced in years, surviving constantly himself and all his falls, disasters, rehabilitations, pitfalls, accidents, and so on, an incurably consistent via crucis, until finally he just could no more get up on his feet, gave up, and died a total wreck in bed. Did he do wrong in scrapping all this world and caring nothing for its global suicide, openly refusing any part of its destructive stress, denouncing all responsibility for a deceased society, and just determinedly in flying colours partying his whole life unto death? He did the best of it and more, and everybody loved him. Aliens. We are exposed as aliens, we who see the folly of the world, the superficial madness of its stress, the lemming universal self-destruction of a civilization that gave up the pursuit of ideals to just go down the drain of egoism instead, to wallow in the vanity of mundane satisfaction. Cry not for yourself, but for the world. We are the chosen ones, charged with a burden to look through the mortal universal folly, an unbearable and painful plight. But we are not the ones to be despised and pitied. We who see the blind go down the abyss of destruction by their own will, tempted by the noise of mass hysteria, following the garish lure of the attraction of insanity, and cannot do anything about it but observe the way of bolting flesh, and charged with the atrocious heaviness of having to survive the constant fall of vanity, and see the builders of sand castles ever fail to start again constructing mirages of self-deceit. We are in fact as outcast exiles privileged, since we are free from the asylum of civilization, free as spirits to be natural and plain, and shedding no tears for ourselves but for humanity.